I would like to introduce our guest today, Senator Rosanna Gabaldon, Representative Daniel Hernandez, and Representative Andrea Dallesandro. They each will be given 15 minutes to share what's happening in the legislation this week. It might take several hours to do that, but we'll cut it back to 15 minutes, please. And where you're headed, what's going on in your political life now down the road, because we know it's going to change, being that LD2 is no longer active. And then we'd also like to have you share maybe a fun fact or two. What has happened that has been a fun event or a comical event in LD2 over the past 10 years? I know there's a lot of history there. So, and then that will leave us 15 minutes at the end for Q&A. So we are hopefully everybody online is starting to think about some questions they can ask our legislators. So we will start out with Senator. Senator, the floor is yours. Please share.
Thank you, George. I appreciate the introduction and the hospitality. Being your legislator for the last 10 years has been quite an honor, and I'm very humbled by the support I have gotten over the number of years. This is something that has been very I guess therapeutic for me, because at the very beginning, as many of us have spoken about, is my public speaking has gotten a bit better, and I also have much more confidence in regards to representing my constituency. So what does that look like? I just want to do a little bit of a history. Is what I'm learning is Arizona is really changing. Since 1973, when I moved here, I found that Southern Arizona has really grown, and it's grown in a very positive way. And sometimes there's times that Southern Arizona hasn't really grown as positive. And one example of that is actually I-10 and the opportunity back in the 80s to actually put the freeway through the city, and that didn't happen. And so, and why I'm talking about that is because I do serve on the Transportation Committee, but I'll talk a little bit about that later on. So the legislature, it's that hurry and wait time. Committees are over. The two committees that are actually meeting, well, I should say just one is the Rules Committee. We still have bills that are coming over, that have come over from the House, and that have been heard through committee, and now we're waiting for it, waiting to hear in Rules, and so that we can caucus them and actually discuss them on the floor and vote on them, that possibility. So that's what's going on. But in the Senate, and my comments are going to be directed to the Senate, is the fact that there's a very slight majority. So there's 16 Republicans and 14 Democrats, and so those so if one of those 16 members are not there, and we have votes that impact, right? So that if they don't have their 16 there, then we don't do much. We just do a prayer and pledge and points of personal privilege, and then we end the day. And so the agendas have been very short, and they're very specific in bills that can actually be passed by if they're bipartisan. So again, it's been a very interesting legislature this session. So let me talk a little bit about what we're hearing as Democrats in the Senate. Is the fact is the Senate president doesn't have her 16 members in agreement on a budget. So discussions for budgets, and all of you that have over the years, Democrats don't have too much discussion regarding the budget. We're not included for the most part. However, the Senate president has actually started having conversations with some of the Democratic members, so we're going to see how that plays out. So one Republican senator has actually indicated that she doesn't, if there's any Democratic support on the budget, they're not going to vote for the budget. And then also there's another Senate Republican that has said that they would not vote for the budget unless they got what they wanted. And so that's two right there. And again, they need their 16 to vote for a budget. So it's it's been a very interesting time in that regard. So let me talk a little bit about what I've done as your legislator. I serve on 3 committees. The first one is I serve on the Commerce Committee. So some of the topics that we have discussed, some of the bills that have gone through, and various topics, because a very diverse committee is liquor. We've talked about liquor, housing, business requirements, employee benefits, workman's comp, tourism, and state licensing and fees. And so I want to just kind of talk about 2 bills that have actually went through the committee and kind of limit that. There's been a lot of bills, but one of them is actually a study committee on housing. And this is going to be on housing supply and access, and it's going to hopefully comply an overview of ways to address Arizona's housing shortage and mitigate its causes. And so I'm very hopeful that that bill is going to move forward, because it's going to really address a big problem that we have in the state of Arizona in regards to housing. And we had a little chat before we started this program in regards to the increasing cost of housing, if it be rentals or mortgage, or having these first time buyers that just can't afford to buy a new home. The second one is, and I wasn't aware of this until I started serving on commerce, is alcohol. Liquor is a very big topic, and when we discuss in the Commerce Committee, and it's amazing how many different permits, liquor permits that exist in the state of Arizona. So those are 2 topics, but there's many topics in commerce. The next committee that I serve on is Health and Human Services, and in Health and Human Services, it was very diverse because of the fact that of some of the topics. And if you have kept up with the media, we have talked about transgender issues and also abortion. And those were very, I guess, very heart-wrenching testimony when it came to the youth that are transgender, women that are facing decisions that are being made regarding their body, how their family looks like. And so Health and Human Services is also another big topic, and there's several topics, was ASH, which is the Arizona State Hospital. And it's just surprising how much goes into having these behavioral health facilities, having actually looking at how we take care of our constituents, how we take care of the people of Arizona. And so some of the topics in Health and Human Services was actually school immunizations, healthcare workers wellness program, ambulance services, and developmentally disabled communities. So those are some of the topics that were there, but I want to focus on 2 of them actually that came through the committee. And one of them was a bill that actually was going to allow physicians that were that graduated. So they were international medical graduates. They were going to come. They were not going to go through the same process as someone who had gone through residency in the state of Arizona. And I felt that was not fair, because we don't know how these individuals, their medical training was in other countries. And when I asked a question during committee as to how do you because they provided the list of countries, and basically the person that was testifying said, well, we just cut and pasted from Canada. So that said a lot about that bill, and it was something that I would not vote for because of the accreditation. And how are we going to be able to trust these physicians if they did not have the same training that we have the expectation of having in the state of Arizona, and then putting the responsibility on the Arizona Medical Board to make those decisions I don't think was fair. Also, I talked about the transgender bill, and at one point we did have a Republican that voted for us, and we were able to kill the bill, and then it was brought back with the Republican committee member that that said that he agreed on something, and so again it moved forward. So unfortunately, that bill did move forward. So Health and Human Services was one of those committees that really was sometimes very difficult, but sometimes very easy because of healthcare and how we look at our most vulnerable population. And the last committee that I served on was Transportation and Technology, which I served as ranking member. And during that committee, we heard topics like EVs, electric vehicles, and charging stations, and special plates. And I was very delighted to, because this has been talked about over the years, is having a standard design for specialty plates. And so that is going to come to happen. It's going to be happen. And I know that law enforcement's delighted with that, with the fact that we're going to have a standard plate for specialty plates. And then Prop 400, which was Maricopa's, their version of the RTA. And then we had ADOT's fees. And then we had an urban air mobility. We're going to have a study committee on that, and then broadband. So I wanted to share with you that I did have a bill that actually got through the Senate, and this was a study committee on median barriers. And once it got to the House, the chair of transportation in the House asked if there could be an ad hoc committee as opposed to a study committee. And so we're going to continue to discuss that. And these median barriers are very important. And I'll give you an example. I was coming home on Thursday, and this 18-wheeler actually kind of ran me off the road, and I actually went into the median. But I was very thankful that I was able to control my car and not cross over to the oncoming traffic, and that other 18-wheelers had actually literally stopped so that I can get back onto I-10. It was a very scary experience, but this is something that is very important. And a constituent actually reached out to me because he lost his wife and sister along I-10, and then we did have some compelling testimony in the Senate with a woman that actually lost her husband and young daughter. And surprising as it is, it was on the same milepost on I-10. So this ad hoc committee, I'm hoping that we can address how we can have more public interstates and state roads. And so another one is actually a bill that went through Transportation and Technology, is establishing a state broadband office. And we have been talking about broadband for a number of years in the state of Arizona. And what is I think is positive about this is that there's going to be more of an opportunity for the state to actually address the lack of broadband throughout the state of Arizona. So I just wanted to share a little bit about that. I'm looking forward to your questions. But I wanted to talk to you about something that has occurred and the decisions that are being made by the legislature. And the thing is I would like to see a world, okay, and a state that actually represents other people's decisions. I think that is very, very important. And then I just want to see Arizona, I want us to be proud of ourselves by giving an opportunity for women, especially women and their families, to make the decision on what their families look like and who's going to be in their family. And I just, and the thing is right now, the state of Arizona is not doing that. We're making decisions in our state that is actually really impacting very negatively towards our state. And now that the state is looking, and they just announced it, over $5 billion in surplus, we can do so much more. Yeah. And I'm looking forward to going back and continuing to be your Arizona State Senator. And I know we're talking, LD 21 and LD 19, but always know my door is open to you. It has been an absolute pleasure to be your state senator for the last 10 years. I mean, your late state legislator. My apologies. But I'm really looking forward to future days, because when we actually look at our future, it's going to be very bright, but we need all of you to continue to work with all of us so that we can make Arizona much better. Thank you very much for this opportunity to speak.
Senator, thank you. Wish we could take you with us, but we know you're going to be hard at work. But
you.
the Green Valley Democrats will support both LD 21 and LD 19 in all events coming up. So thank you very much for being a part of us. And I wrote very fast, so I have lots of questions for you. All right, thank you very much. We will have Daniel Hernandez come on next. Representative Hernandez, if you would like to take the floor.
Mary, first of all, I just want to say thank you to Representative Dallesandro for being such a great partner in the House. I've really enjoyed spending the last year and a half serving with her. And I want to commend her for doing something that is quite rare for members of the House, which is, at least for Democrats, getting bills out of the House. She had 2 bills that have made it over to the Senate. So I just want to thank her for her hard work, especially on Cherry Bell, because I know that has been a passion project for over a decade. So I wanted to thank her and recognize her leadership in the House and being the most senior Democrat in the House as well, and trying to lead by example. So as has already been mentioned, this has been a very difficult legislative session. We're in the midst of what is one of the most contentious sessions that I've ever been a part of. This is my 14th year going to the state capitol, first as an advocate and now as a representative. This is my 6th term, my 6th year as an actual legislator. And I think while we can spend a lot of time talking about all the bad things, and there are certainly plenty of bad things that have been coming out of the Arizona State Legislature, I also want to talk about some of the wins and some of the positives, because I do think that there have been a couple of good things that have come out of the legislature. So one of the things that we were able to actually defeat was a bill that would have actually banned a medication that's used for non-surgical abortions. It was HB 2811. And it was a bill where we were able to make a case to our Republican colleagues that this medication, 1, should not be banned, and 2, should not be made into a Class 3 felony. So a handful of us were able to get enough Republicans to kill this bill that would have outlawed non-surgical abortions in Arizona. And while that may sound like a small win compared to the fact that we passed a 15-week abortion ban, over 50% of the abortions made in Arizona are done using abortive medication. So that would have meant that now 50% of those abortions would not have had a safe option had that bill passed. And we appealed to our Republican colleagues, and we were able to make the case and kill that bill. On my 32nd birthday, I had the honor, I guess is the nicest way of putting it, of being in the Education Committee hearing and talking about why we shouldn't be passing 2 really awful pieces of legislation that we've been able to amend so much that they are no longer going to harm kids. The first one was one that would have required teachers to out LGBTQ students if they came out to them. It would have also given them a penalty as individual teachers for doing that. The other bill was one that would have reinstated no promo homo, which was a bill that we had repealed back in 2019 in a bipartisan fashion, that no longer makes it illegal for us to be able to have conversations about the LGBTQ community in Arizona public schools. So those were some of the wins that we've had because we've been able to kill these bad bills. We've also been able to work in the House, at least. We're still waiting to see what will happen in the Senate side to make sure that we're protecting consumers and seniors. There was a big bill about deregulating our electrical utilities, and it was something that was very contentious. But what we saw, what happened in Texas, was when you allow deregulation to happen, there was no accountability and there was no one who was responsible for maintaining the lines. So what happened in Texas was during a major snowstorm, people lost their power for weeks or days, which led to many people, especially those who were some of our most vulnerable citizens in Texas, dying because they didn't have access to their machines that help keep them alive, their oxygenators, their different machines that help keep them on top of their health. So that was a bill where we were able to work with labor, with the folks over at the utilities, and also with consumer advocates to make sure we're protecting Arizona consumers. I think one of the other things that's been really, I think, a highlight for me is serving on the Education Committee hearing. While there have been a lot of contentious bills coming out of education, which is a little unusual, we've also been able to find consensus on finding some common sense solutions to some of the problems that are coming up from rural school districts. As you all know, LD2 has one of the smallest and one of the most rural districts with Continental, and making sure that we're doing everything we can to provide solutions for these schools, from ensuring that we're working with our partners at the AEA and AFT. We've been listening to teachers, we've been listening to educators, and we on the education committee have been really fighting back against some of these attempts to try and make the profession one that's harder for folks. So I think as we're looking to the next couple of weeks, we have heard a couple of rumors, and I'll go ahead and lay them out because they've been reported by the press. But the first is that there's going to be an attempt to have a special session to repeal and replace a tax cut that was put into place last year. What happened is Senator Paul Boyer, who's a Republican and the chair of the Education Committee, has said in an op-ed that he is not willing to sign off on a new major tax cut unless there is a $900 million investment in Arizona public schools. So whether you're a D or an R, I think we can all agree that an infusion of $900 million would be a very good thing for Arizona public schools. The sad truth is, even the $900 million would not make us whole, and it wouldn't fill the entire budget hole that is existing in Arizona public schools, but it would go a long way to closing that gap. So I think it's important for us to know that as we are seeing the budget be rolled out and negotiated over the next couple of weeks, there are opportunities for us to work with the Republicans to get some things done. Because if we work with folks like Paul, who have said, my stake in the ground, my red line in the sand is more money for education, those are some things that we can agree on. Massive tax cuts that are going to benefit the wealthiest, the richest, and the biggest corporations in Arizona is not what we can agree on. So we need to be able to find agreement. And I think that's where there are several of us, especially in the House, that have been talking to our Republican colleagues continually and saying, we're here, we're ready, but you need to come with an open mind, because we're not going to come in and sign off on a major tax cut just so we can get education spending. We should not be in a situation where we are robbing Peter to pay Paul, and then we are, once again in a situation where we're not fully funding education. One of the other things that we've been really focused on this year is addressing some of the problems in public safety. Right now, one of the big problems that we're having throughout the state is retention of not just teachers, but of all public servants, from corrections officers to people working at DES. So we really need to make sure that we as a state are looking at our infrastructure and what are the core services that we provide, and making sure that we are providing livable wages to those people. Because if we keep losing staff at every level, at every agency, the state will suffer. Whether it's the kids who are being lost and have been lost in the past because the caseworkers just don't have the capacity, or whether it's corrections facilities where we had to lower the age to 18 for corrections officer because we could not keep corrections officers. There are so many things that need to be addressed. And one of the smallest ways we can do that is doing a cost of living adjustment for almost all of the staff across Arizona state agencies. I serve on the Public Safety Committee and Military Affairs Committee, and we've been able to do some spending that I'm so excited about to ensure that veterans have access to different services, and also to waive the tuition at the universities for the families and for the children of veterans who have committed suicide because of PTSI. So it's these little things that I think give me some hope that there are opportunities to get stuff done in the budget, that we will be able to continue to kill some of these bad bills, because there are pathways to kill some of them. While we didn't win on every battle, we've won on some major battles. We still have not seen the bill that would allow guns in public schools and universities all the way through. We've been able to keep that at bay, and a lot of that is due to many people on this call who worked with me and folks like Representative Dallesandro and the folks at Moms Demand Action to make sure that we're doing that. I also, like I mentioned, I'm serving on the Education Committee. I'm really, it's a bittersweet moment for me because this is going to be my last term in the Arizona State House. As many of you know, I'm running for the open congressional seat. So some of you will still potentially be constituents, some of you will not. But I want to say thank you. The last 6 years have really been quite an honor for me to be able to serve with Representative Dallesandro and to be your representative in the State House. Representative Dallesandro and I have not always agreed, and there have been more than one occasion where we have voted differently on things, but we've been able to show that, as Democrats, we need to be focused on supporting and uplifting each other and not going after each other. I think that's the big thing, that the only way the Democratic caucus will grow into a majority is if we are solely focused on we are the ones doing the good. We need to go after the ones doing the harm, and going after each other is not the way that we get that done. So as we're looking to the future, I'm really excited about some of the candidates, including Gonzalo Hernandez, who's my sister, who's running for the LD21 open house seats. She's a current president of the Sunnyside Unified School District Governing Board. But what I will continue to do, as I am still your representative through the end of the year and into January when the new folks get sworn in, is always be willing to work with you all, always ready to help when we can and do what we can to make sure we're providing you information. I think the biggest challenge for us at the legislature this year as Democrats has been we were appallingly close to becoming the majority. We were so close. Representative Dallesandro and I traveled all over the state to help out other candidates in competitive races because we knew that in 2020, we were going to be safe in our general elections. So we went across the state to help out people like Judy Schweber, who thankfully won a seat, but we lost some other safe Democratic seats. So in order for us to finally get into that majority, we all need to hug each other closely and say, okay, let's charge forward. Let's not lose any safe Democratic seats. Pima County has that awful issue that every cycle we had been losing one. We didn't do that in 2020. So let's make sure that doesn't happen in 2022 because we really need to get into the majority, or at the very least tied, because I'm telling you, in an environment where we should have more bipartisanship, we've had less. And it's not for lack of us trying. It's because the Republicans that are at the legislature right now are some of the most extremists, some of the most far right wing, where even Republican legislators who used to be there a couple of years ago are appalled by the people that are in the legislature. We have people running for Secretary of State like Mark Fincham, who denies that Donald Trump is no longer president, that Joe Biden has been president now for almost 2 years and he's still fighting that fight. We had people like Kelly Townsend, the chair of the Senate Elections Committee, who introduced bills to overturn the election results. So these are the people that we are having to defend Arizona from. But if we were able to get into the majority in 2022, while I may not be there, it would allow Democrats to make sure that we are not having a, how do we triage and what is the best thing that we can do to kill this bill? It's how do we move the Arizona agenda forward? One where everybody has livable wages, good public schools, good public roads, and has an opportunity to be successful. The last thing that I'll wrap up with is, as we're looking at the next couple of weeks, I think there's going to be a lot of interesting opportunities, particularly right now. Raytheon is one of the biggest employers in Southern Arizona and is working on a research and development tax credit to help make sure that we keep that research here and not letting it go to Alabama. We also need to make sure that whatever deal we get when we're working on these is one that's good for Arizona. So as always, I'm committed to working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to making sure that we are doing what's good for business, but above all, what's good for Arizona. And then the last thing I'll say is, as we're heading to the end of what will hopefully not be a session that's too much longer, I'm just excited that we will continue to have opportunities to talk about how we can spend and invest in Arizona. Because in the entire 14 years that I've been coming to the legislature, we've never had conversations about how are we going to spend money. It's usually how are we going to cut money. So the fact that we have coffers that are full, we need to make sure that we're using this money, especially those one-time dollars, in investments that will do much good for Arizona. Doing things like investing in infrastructure projects where we can put people back to work with good union jobs, making sure that we're investing as much in education, and really supporting the infrastructure of the state of Arizona, because we know so many people are being left behind with broadband or lack of roads that are paved and bridges that are safe. So we need to do so much to invest. So with that, I will hand it back to George, but I just wanted to say thank you. I'm going to type in my email. I think everybody has it by now, but I'll go ahead and type it if anybody wants to stay in touch or ask any questions afterwards if we don't get to them.
Wouldn't it be nice to have our legislators be a reflective face of the people in Arizona? So thank you both for saying so. We appreciate it. Daniel, thank you for all your hard works. We will see you down the road in other adventures. So we look forward to that too. So thank you very much. Representative Dallesandro, the floor is yours. Please fill us in.
Well, thank you very much. Representative Hernandez is right. It's been a while since you had us as guests, so I will try to speak quickly and everyone can see the videotape. First of all, I want to thank everyone who helped me get elected in 2020. Because of COVID-19, I was not able to actively campaign after knocking on thousands and thousands of doors in the previous 12 years. Grateful for all who helped me get on the ballot early. I had a very successful Facebook, as much as I dislike Facebook, I had 1,200 views on my 2-minute ad that I had on Facebook, and that helped me win. I also pushed the clean elections debate, both for the primary and the general election. And I want to thank my seatmate, Representative Daniel Hernandez, because even though he didn't have to attend because he was a traditionally funded candidate, he came to the primary and general clean election debate. And I so appreciate his support, or else it would have been me in the general against 2 Republicans. And the clean elections people who I know very well, they gave LD2 kudos for looking at the clean election debate. I serve on natural resources, energy, and water, and Representative Cano is the ranking member. I have been the ranking member on environmental committees before, and it's not like Congress that you have a lot of power or respect even, but I am very grateful that Representative Cano frequently seeks my counsel, asks me what I think about something, and so we have a very good relationship, especially since 3 of the new Democrats in the House that were sworn in December are on that committee. So natural resources, energy, and water. My other committee is LARA, Land, Agriculture, and Rural Affairs. And I have a similar relationship with Representative Lorenzo Sierra from the West Valley up in Maricopa County. And I have still have passion for education. That was my first issue. I always said I'm running to stem the defunding of public education, and that still is my passion, even though I don't serve on that committee. I also have subbed in the Transportation Committee when needed. I chose not to be a ranking member because I knew I wasn't going to run for the House again, and I knew that the newer members needed the experience, so I find myself often in a mentorship role. And I do have 2 bills that have passed committees in the Senate, the Cherry Bell bill. And if you I don't think if you Google my name, you'll see it. But if you look for a Tucson council member, Richard Fimbres, you'll see that the president signed the postal reform bill earlier this week, and in Councilmember Fimbres was a partner, and on the Tucson level, and Congressman Grijalva, and I was the legislative arm of it, getting 2 bills passed in previous sessions to say, keep Cherry Bell open. It makes no sense for our mail from Southern Arizona to go all the way up to Phoenix. Tucson and Southern Arizona, they need the Tucson postmark back. So I was very honored that Councilmember Fimbres included me in his press release. My other bill came from when I went to the Rural Transportation Conference in September 27-29. Regional transportation people, like in Pima County, Pima Association of Governments, any federal transportation contract that they get, the contract says you're eligible for federal mileage and per diem reimbursement unless your state policy says something else. Unfortunately, Arizona's state policy says something else. So I'm hoping that bill will get third read soon. Probably one of the biggest deals financially in the 10 years I've been serving, and I'm very grateful to the Biden administration and for Governor Ducey's staff for clearing my proposal of a $1,854,893 grant to Tucson Habitat for Humanity for a warehouse, a meeting place, storage. And the reason it was such a strong application was it had two different parts. One was affordable housing. The other was training, workforce development, because Habitat is working with the community colleges and the union to train people to, to build houses. So it's very important. My other proposal is still in the works. They're still vetting it. And it's not only mine, but it's other House members for Job Path. Job Path is through the PEMA interfaith. And what they do is they identify people who are underemployed, who have great potential to get jobs, and they just need a support system to get their degree. So we've had people who were struggling to pay for their childcare, now are nurses, now are airport mechanics, getting good paying jobs. So one of the reasons for the delay, I believe, is we have a PEMA one, and there's also a Maricopa similar of that. As was mentioned before, we have special session rumors, and we never know. I could get a call next Friday and say, come back to the Capitol. We're having a special session. And I'm hoping that the flat tax for fat cats, which I say for fat cats, will not be repealed and revised, because if they do that, they will be thwarting the efforts of this club and other groups' signatures that we gathered last summer, that A4A and Green Valley Democrats, and I had 18 events in Quail Creek and in Patagonia and Tubac. Three things, without water, there's not life. Three things going on. One, they're trying to do Arizona Water Authority with $1 billion, and the whole thing is just rushed and flawed. I will not support anything unless there is active participation from the tribes, from University of Arizona and ASU, and environmental groups. And while I appreciate the efforts of all legislators with the drought contingency plan that we passed a few years ago, and I know that conservation isn't the entire solution, I could not vote for the drought contingency plan because it did not have enough conservation. And it turned out to be the reason I got an A+ from the Sierra Club. One of the things about the Arizona Water Authority, the biggest voice is agriculture. They use the most water, and I believe much of big ag wastewater. Not the family farms. I think they're much more sensitive to conservation. I currently serve as on the Arizona Reconsultation as the committee as the House Democrat. So that is the follow-up for the drought contingency plan. And folks, it's serious. And agriculture and industry and residential need to do their part. Recently, Speaker Bowers appointed me as a liaison to the Ombudsman's office. Those of you who've been around a long time may remember that I had many senior scam prevention events in Green Valley, in Nogales, and Patagonia. My first week in office, Green Valley News editor Dan Shearer gave me a challenge. Literally, it was like session starts Monday. I think it was Wednesday night. He said to me, there are a lot of scams in Green Valley. What are you going to do about it? So as soon as the session was over, committees were over, I went to the Attorney General's office and pulled together the Attorney General's special staff about scams to come to Green Valley and you know, other places. They were very effective, and if you Google that, you'll see that Dan Chair wrote a really nice editorial about me. I'm sorry, this is my 5th Zoom meeting today. Okay. The Arizona Independent Redistricting Commission, you know, they were hell-bent on getting rid of my strong voice. So they divided Sahuarita to put me in a very Republican district, but that's not really the issue. I served on the Senate Judiciary Committee for 7 years. And one of the big problems was the Commission on Appellate Court Appointments. They screen candidates for the Arizona Supreme Court and other high-level judges, but they also screen for the people who served on the Independent Redistricting Commission. So when Janet Napolitano was governor, she had 8 Democrats and 7 Republicans. Some of them were moderate Republicans, but they were Republican. Where Governor Ducey decided to put all Republicans and Republican-leaning independents. And the Bar Association in April of 2019 said, you know, he really evaded the Constitution. Based on that and some other things that happened, national lawyer Mark Elias, I believe, will file a lawsuit. I follow him on Twitter. There were some errors made. In October, Senator Leach told me, when I was talking about 2 of our favorite Republicans in the rural part of Sahuarita, they were my constituents, and he told me not anymore, long before the maps were done. Worse bills, some of them have been mentioned already, the abortion, the trans bills, and the voting rights bills. But one of the the trans and the abortion bills are clearly unconstitutional, and we will wind up in court, and Arizona will lose, and they will have to pay court expenses, both from inside counsel and outside counsel. But you know, I ran to stop the systemic defunding of public education. Last week, there was a broad restructuring of financing for K-12 education, and there are winners and losers. It didn't go through the Education Committee, so Representative Hernandez didn't hear it. It went through appropriations. It was limited to very little bit of discussion, and it's just horrible. And our area in Southern Arizona is really hard hit. There are winners and there are losers, and some districts are getting more money and some are getting less, and it's very unfair. And charter schools are getting a lot of the new money. As far as I was on Bill Buckmaster's radio show a month or 2 ago, and he asked me what I was going to run for next. I have been asked to run for U.S. Senator in 2024 and to run for Corporation Commission in 2026, because Sandra Kennedy, who I hope will be reelected, she'll finish her 2nd term. For New York City Minute, I thought about running for treasurer, but then my colleague, Senator Martin Casada, stepped up to run for that. So I'm not running for anything this time. And I just want to tell you one thing. I am probably the closest to being Ukrainian than anyone in the legislature, because my father's father was born in Chernobyl, and I have a lot of in Ukraine, even though I'm ethnically Polish. And before my last comment is going to be a congratulations to Green Valley Democrats for having volunteers staffing the headquarters on Friday, because I'm in Phoenix Monday to Thursday during session. And it was great to be able to stop by, and Pima Democrats are not open on Friday. Thank you very much.
Representative, thank you very much. And I want to say a special thank you for being a part of our petition palooza. It made a big difference. So
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
There we go.
There we go. All right. Well, the first question I have is for you, Senator. And are we seeing any, Paul, are you watching for chat for questions there?
I don't see any chats, but please type them in if you have a question about the bad bills, good bills, whatever else, please. So what were the funny things? Were they going to say that?
There you go, Senator. What is a couple funny things that happened to you in the last 10 years?
Oh, funny things. Well, I guess I can find humor in some of the behavior of my colleagues across the aisle, and maybe perhaps in our caucus as well. And I think that we have to bring humor. We have to sometimes laugh at ourselves at times, and enjoy and have those conversations that make us smile. So I think the funny things were, it's a very serious business in how we represent the state of Arizona. But at the end of the day, if we laugh at ourselves and really talk about the different ways we can handle situations, I think humor is very therapeutic.
Good, thank you. Representative Hernandez, what kind of funny things have you come across in the last 14 years?
There is one thing that sticks out in my mind. There's a gentleman that we served with named Jay Lawrence. He was the oldest member of the body, and he has a radio voice. He actually has a radio show that he does regularly, and he's even invited folks like Pam Powers Hanley. So he has folks across the aisle come in. But in 2020, right at the beginning of the year, there was something that happened, which is he was at an event and there was a woman who introduced herself to him, and it turns out it was his long lost daughter. So there was a situation where he tweeted, and I found the tweet: Arizona Rally for Life, amazing event, speakers, Governor Ducey, Bishop, Ryan Scott, many more, over 100,000 in crowd. I found out I have a daughter from an Air Force affair. She is beautiful, LDS, lives in Utah. What a week. So for me, I will always remember Jay Lawrence for in a tweet where he's talking about this pro-life rally, just in the very end of it, sneaking in that he has a daughter from an affair and that she's beautiful and lives in Utah, apparently. But we then talked to him on the floor, and he just kept saying, what a week, what a week. So I think that will forever be one of the funnier things. We also had a situation where we were trying to have a bill that would ban non-animal products from being labeled as dairy. So no more almond milk, it'd have to be almond beverage. And that was because a lot of the cattlemen and the dairymen didn't like that Impossible meat was being used and that they were calling it meat. So this bill that was sponsored by one of our colleagues from rural Arizona, David Cook, and he's getting up to make this impassioned, argument about, you can't call meat if it's not meat. So I privately went up to him and I'm like, what about peanut butter? There is no butter in peanut butter. And it just blew his mind. And then people kept asking him questions like, where do almonds get their milk? Do almonds lactate? So this was just one of those bills that was completely silly when you look back at it. So those are two moments that in the last 6 years, I think have been really kind of charming and kind of funny because they didn't involve anybody getting hurt. They didn't involve anything terrible in terms of bills, but it was just a funny situation to be in at the legislature.
That's one of my mom's favorite sayings. She said, if nobody got hurt that day, it was a good day. So thank you. And those are funny. And Representative Dallesandro, what funny things happened to you?
Well, some of you might know that I have a rare blood cancer, so I'm permitted to vote from my office. Last year, I was able to vote from my bedroom and my kitchen table where I am now. But last year, I ran into some of the young Republicans, and we're on the third floor waiting for the elevator. And so they said to me, oh, hi, Representative, it's good to see you. Of course, I have my mask on. They don't. And they said, we don't always agree with you, but we do appreciate your floor speeches. And with that, I won't name them. And with that, the door opens and Representative Fincham is in the elevator and everybody just stands still. And so I said, well, you know, you have to get out of the elevator for us to get in, you know, and apparently they weren't talking to him. He wasn't talking to them because they didn't vote for him for leadership. The next story goes back, and I don't know if any of you, I've been a member of the club with maybe some interruption since 2004, and Dick and Audrey Feeney were among the first people to ask me to run. And they were, I can remember being in La Posada, the restaurant, and when they first asked me, but Dick had a hat that he would wear. And if Gabby Giffords was going to be at the event, it would say Giffords. But if she wasn't at the event, he would wear a hat that said Dallesandro. Because some of you might remember, I ran in 2008 against Antonori and Gowan, and then in 2010 against Gowan again and someone else. And so when I was trying to explain to Gabby about Two Hat Dick, she had no idea because she only saw him with a Giffords hat on, you know. So, yeah, and we're still, you know, we went during the campaign last time to the headquarters that had been the LD2 Tucson headquarters to see Mark and Gabby, and we couldn't embrace them, but there was, you know, with Representative Hernandez and I, it was really special. But I think here I am, a Polish American with a paternal grandfather born in Ukraine with an Italian last name representing a Latino district. So that's the American dream. Thank you so much.
Bless you for that. I think, Paul, you have a question from someone?
I do. It's from Pat Sharp. Whoever wants to take it, all of you or one of you or whoever, how can we keep up on activity in the legislature through the Tucson Star? What's the best way for us to keep up on things?
My Facebook.
Facebook.
Just enter my name, Andrea Dallesandro, and Twitter.
Senator,
do you have some suggestions?
Oh, I send out a newsletter, and I'm not going to delete anybody that was already on my list, so that you'll continue to get my newsletter on what is happening at the legislature.
Yes, thank you. Representative Hernandez, you got some suggestions?
Yeah, I would also recommend checking out the Arizona Mirror. It is an online news publication from Arizona, from Phoenix, that covers the Arizona State Legislature. Right now, it is still a free service, so you don't have to subscribe to it. But I would highly recommend it. They have a lot of really great investigative journalism. It's a nonprofit. There's also the Arizona Agenda, which is a subscription service. It's a daily newsletter about the Arizona State Legislature. It's a little bit of snarkiness with a lot of jokes, but has a lot of serious topics that they cover. So I would suggest, on top of everything that's already been said by Representative Dallesandro and Senator Gabaldon, that folks also go and check out the Arizona Mirror and the Arizona Agenda, and I'll type in links to both in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, I use Arizona Mirror to post a lot of our stuff to Facebook because they are very aware of stuff's going on. Paul, you had some more questions?
Yes. Let's see. Daniel must have put this in the article about Jay Lawrence and his daughter, long lost daughter. And let's see, from Dean and Carolyn Josie. Daniel, how can you possibly cover all the areas included in LD 19? Is the question.
You know, that is one of the challenges, that Arizona has some of the largest legislative districts in the country. When you look at Arizona, we have the distinction for being, I think, the second largest legislative districts, only second to California, where senators have 1 million constituents, state senators, and they have a staff of usually about 10. We as Arizona state lawmakers cover 250,000 plus people with no full-time staff if you're in the minority. We have an assistant that we share unless you're in leadership. So it becomes really difficult, but that's where it's so important that we rely on folks like you all to help spread our message. So retweeting folks like Representative Dallesandro mentioned, following us on Twitter, retweeting the things that we put out. And then when there are calls to action, helping make sure that we're actually having people call in to the legislature, because I think so much of what happens at the Capitol is done on the cover of darkness because our colleagues don't give people in the public an opportunity to respond. I think one of the hardest things and one of the most difficult things is we have these things called strikers, which are strike everything amendments, where bill has already gone through committee and has already gone through a chamber. Then it gets to the next chamber and they completely get rid of all the language underneath and completely create a new bill and really limit the opportunity for the public to have their input. As that massive education bill that Representative Dallesandro mentioned a few minutes ago, that is a perfect example of we don't know what we don't know. And if the public only has 12 minutes to discuss the biggest takeover and the biggest changes to public education, it is not a fair hearing and it is not a fair process. So it's really difficult, but that's where we rely on groups like Green Valley Democrats and all of the other groups and LD committees to make sure that they're helping us get out the word. So I think the newsletters that you all put out, I would recommend making sure that we get legislators to submit a couple of sentences every time that the newsletter goes out so that they can give like a quick update. I know we've done it, haphazardly over the last 10 years, sometimes yes and sometimes no, but I think that might be another valuable way. And one of the things that I've really been talking to a lot of folks across the country is having legislators record little videos that do like here's what happened at the Capitol today, or here's what happened in the Capitol this week. So I think as we're heading into the next chapter of the legislative session, I'm going to start doing a little bit of those because I've been hearing from a lot of folks across the country how successful it's been for them to communicate what's happening at the Capitol.
Yeah. And I think the lucky person for LD19 is Sanda, who I think is at this meeting. And I think that will be subject to lawsuits because, I've run in Green Valley and Sahuarita since 2008. And the northern part of Santa Cruz, which all three of us represent all of Santa Cruz County now. And I ran in Sierra Vista in 2008 and 10, and that's the population base in Cochise County. But Graham and Greeley have I don't know what they were thinking when they did communities of interest. And the core problem was the Commission on Appellate Court Appointments and who they selected, especially for the independent. One of our current legislators, Chris Mathis, his wife, Colleen, was the independent 10 years ago, and she really was independent. And the one we had this year was a Republican until the filing deadline the day before she switched, so it's been disappointing. But I mean, it's not going to impact me, but I will expect that there will be a redistrict, a lawsuit about some irregularities. Well, I don't discourage anyone from running or trying, because I ran in an uphill race, but I gave them a run for their money. But I think that it's been reported that 17 of the 30 districts are heavily favoring Republicans, and that's sad. It should be 12 or 13 and 13, and then some, that are competitive, and so it is against many of the tenets of the Citizens Initiative.
Right.
Communities of interest. I mean, what do we have to do with Greeley and Graham? Cochise a little bit, and Santa Cruz definitely, but sure. Graham, really.
George, I know you had some questions, right?
I was just going to say, thank you, Representative, for mentioning Sanda's name, and we will have Sanda come and speak to us in the next few months. And so, and if you do hear of a lawsuit, send me something, because we would like to keep our membership up to date on those kind of things. Representative Hernandez, I like your ideas of doing more videos, and so we will try to make sure that we do that. We have had a couple in the past up on our website, so we like videos, and I like the idea of having, even if it's only a couple, 3 or 4 sentences from you. We'd love to hear what's going on. And so I will make it a promise, Senator, that we will video you after the session is done to have you one more time to bring us up to date. So thank you. I have a question for you, Senator. As you mentioned the possibility of them not having a budget. What will happen if there is no budget this year? Will we revert back to last year? What will happen on no budget appropriation?
well, rumor has it that they may just pass a skinny budget as they did previously, and then address it later on through special sessions. But however, the thing is and this is a quote from Senator Fan, is it's very difficult to hurt the cats. And so the thing right now is she is actually trying to have conversations with the Democrats, but she is having problems with their own members. So when you talk about the budget it's just a moving target. We as Democrats, we only hear about the budget 24 hours. Luckily 48 hours before we're actually voting on it. So again, the fact of the matter is that needs to change, and we as Democrats have a blueprint, both from the House and the Senate, and we have our priorities, and we know what our priorities are, and those priorities were mentioned by the three of us in regards to how we want to see Arizona. So when it comes to the budget, it depends on who you talk to. Lobbyists are saying we'll be there until the end of June. Others are saying we'll be leaving at the end of May. Special sessions have been mentioned. So it's a moving target, George. And that I wish I could tell you, yes, this is what's going to happen. But we as Democrats, we are just are there, and we're hopefully we'll be part. we'll know beforehand. But a lot of times we learn just hours before.
Sorry to hear that.
And if we don't have a budget submitted to the governor by June 30th at midnight, they put cloths over the clock so time stops. They did that in 2009. Yeah, really. The time stops.
So this last year we actually stayed until the end of June. So then there was talk of shutdown of government. So yeah, we just don't know.
All right. And it's kind of funny. I had all these bills that came through. I kind of was able to divide them into two basic categories, and education and voter suppression. So I was so glad to hear from you all today that was not the case. There are many other things going on out there. Representative Hernandez, there were two bills that in the education, I believe, is where they should have been. I'm not for sure if that's where they were at. One was on school library and reviews by parents, and the other one was on attack on teachers for them to voice their education, and for school boards to be able to attack teachers and them to be fined and penalized. So will you want to address either one of those?
Yeah, so what we've seen in the last couple of weeks, and keep in mind, in the Arizona legislature, we only hear bills from the House for about 6 weeks. Then we have a week where we send bills from the House to the Senate, and then there's only 6 weeks of hearing Senate bills and vice versa. So we only have 12 weeks for most of the damage to get done, as I like to joke, when it comes to a lot of these bad bills. But in the last couple of weeks, there has been a concerted effort by our Republican colleagues to go after teachers. And I think what has been happening is this belief that because of the elections that happened in Virginia, where Republicans were able to take back the education issue from Democrats, because for the first time, Democrats were losing on education issues in the Virginia elections in 2021, they're trying to turn everything into an argument about parental rights. So they keep running these bills, and instead of defending what the bills say or do, they just shout, well, it's about parental rights, and they try and shut down the argument or the conversation. But when it came to a bill that came through the Committee of Public Safety, it had to do with requiring an NRA developed course for gun safety, the Eddie the Eagle program. And I wanted to add an amendment that would say that you had an opt out, because for a lot of things, parents are able to opt out. And actually, I said, let's take it one step further and make it an opt in, so that parents have to agree to allow their children to take these courses. Well, when I tried that argument, one of my Republican colleagues said that he wanted to know the names and addresses of every parent so that their kids would get taken away if they didn't want to take this gun safety course that the NRA developed. So parental rights were not respected on that bill, but for every other bill, they just love to yell about parental rights, because I think that negates all of the actual arguments that we were making about the completely unnecessary step of listing every book that is going to be bought by a library. If you're going to buy Clifford the Big Red Dog, you have to put it on a website and 60 days of review for people to tell you whether or not they want you to buy copies of Clifford the Big Red Dog. And I thought that was one, more government. And this is the thing that has been really funny. Representative Dallesandro and I keep arguing with our Republican colleagues in the House that they want more government and we're fighting for less government, less unfunded mandates. So those two bills are part of a package that we've seen across Arizona that are really harmful because they're under the guise of parental rights, but it's really about big government intrusion, putting more regulations on teachers, and really trying to criminalize and go and vilify our teachers. Representative Dallesandro?
Yeah, and some of the books they want to disallow really put our advanced placement courses at risk because it's required reading some of these great works of literature and developing critical thinking skills. So sometimes they don't see the repercussions of what they're promoting, and it's really horrible. It's really, and it's like a war on teachers, and it's so unfair because every classroom that I've gone to, and I'm sure Senator Gabaldon and Representative Hernandez, every classroom we go to in Pima County and Santa Cruz County, we see teachers with lots of challenges, but they have the kiddos in the palm of their hand. Whether we're looking at kindergarten kids or seniors in high school, we're in schools all the time, and they just do wonderful, wonderful things.
Okay.
Yes, I'd like to just say I applaud all the educators out there, and when we talk about schools, and I'm so glad that my colleagues are mentioning this is the support staff as well. We need our bus drivers and our librarians, and so those are so important. And public education seems to be attack. I mean, and I think it's not just this legislative session, it's all the legislative sessions that we have just attacked public education. And that is so unfortunate because public education is our foundation.
We are past the hour. I have one more question. If you can all stay in a couple more minutes. And it has to do with water. And so I will address this to you, Representative Dallesandro, is in that LD19 is a more rural area than we've been used to in LD2. And so we will have to face some problems in rural areas that we have not had to face before. So I'm wondering with there have been some water issues on pollution in wells at certain levels. I've heard U of A talk about this. Is there anything in the pike to assist them in agriculture or water levels?
Well, Gail Griffin will probably wind up being one of your representatives, and she is in real estate. She would just love to build houses. Years ago, I was at a corporation commission meeting in Sierra Vista, and I thought a gun battle was going to break out because they were asking Chris Mays, who was our Democratic candidate for state attorney general, was just asking some of the people in Cochise County to do voluntary metering of wells, because if you're taking too much water out of the groundwater, they had roads collapse due to overpumping and subsidence in Cochise County this year. And there aren't a zillion roads in rural areas, so if one goes down, it really hampers. So the clean water is an issue too, and enough water. They would like to have in Benson, many homes built. The Fort Huachuca is critical, and if it doesn't have water, the next BRAC, the base relocation committee, if there isn't water there, it's at risk. Now, Fort Huachuca is for intelligence, so it is critical, and I believe it will stay. But if we live in a desert, and I just want to point out, I don't monitor the Commerce Authority unless they're doing something that is a rural Arizona function, because then it impacts LD2. But I don't understand why, in God's name, they would go out and recruit bottling companies to come to Arizona, not down here, but in Maricopa County. I don't care how many jobs it makes. We are in a 22-year drought, and we live in a desert. So I don't, and one of the things is that we don't have any control over what the Commerce Authority does. We give them funding, and we can't say, don't do that. That's not a good idea. Let's attract sustainable businesses and building that isn't going to make the drought situation worse. I'm just glad I have a water harvesting system. So at least if things get really bad, I could hold the water in and flush my toilet. But, I'm really upset about the policy. Do you ever see anything on television that says conserve water? I lived in New Jersey before I came here. We had droughts. We had floods. And there was always messaging, but I think Governor Ducey might have something outside his office, but most of my constituents don't get up there to sit to his office to see something about conservation.
Okay. Either one of you want to add to that?
I'd like to, if I may. In regards to water, it's a very complex topic, and so when Arizona is looking at this, but when agriculture testifies, and I served on the Natural Resource committee for the 8 years that I was in the House, is I kept saying, that we're in a drought. It's been 20 plus years, and they just kept kind of shrugging their shoulders. So I know that Representative Dallesandro had brought up agriculture, but the fact is yes, agriculture is important to the state of Arizona. However, the state of Arizona really does need to have that hard conversation regarding, because they use like 80%, about 80% of the water use. And so when it comes to even our backyard, we're 40% of our water use here in the Green Valley Sahuarita area is mining. 40% is agriculture. And so that leaves only 20%, which is 10% of rooftops, and the other 10% is other businesses. So if you look at the water use, even in our backyard, we have to look harder and in regards to having mandates on our agriculture and our mining industry. And our mining industry is too lax. So this is towards the water issue, is that the mines need to be able, that we have to mandate that they reuse every drop of water, that they're not over pumping our aquifers throughout the state of Arizona, not just in our backyard, but throughout the state of Arizona. And the thing is as Representative Dallesandro had brought up, the Arizona Water Authority is at this point is they're not getting to the point. They're not getting to what we really do need to address. And as was mentioned before, the tribes is going to be a very big, Indian water rights is going to be a big issue. And DCP had been brought up, and they were actually the ones that really brought it home. But DCP was just a baby step towards that. And then the last thing I want to say about water is Lake Powell. That's gonna impact our power in throughout the Southwest. And so water is one of those issues that should have been addressed years ago. As has been mentioned, Benson with 28,000, and I'm going to say that one more time, 28,000 proposed houses, and 7,000 Sierra Vista, we just do not have the water in the state of Arizona. And that is just a very small portion of Arizona. And so water is going to be our next very large issue that needs to be addressed.
Okay. I want to thank everybody for being a part of this. We really do appreciate it, and especially to our representatives. If we were there in person, we will be standing and giving you all large applause. So thank you all for being our representatives and senator in the House. So it has been our pleasure to have you do that. So thank you for all your hard work and dedication. Paul, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, we could go on for a long, long time with questions.
We could.
Sure. About what's the worst bill that there ever was, and what can we do about it? That would be a long one. So no, but maybe we can have you guys back someday.
Oh, that would be great.
It'd be an honor.
All right. So
it'll be our pleasure.
Thanks very much.
We will Remember to drop your goods by the headquarters. We help with the Samaritans and the items we need there. And remember, we will not be here on the 23rd. We'll be over at the Sarita Town Festival. So please drop by, say hello. We'd love to have you be there. And all our candidates are welcome there too. So
And
thank you.
I'd like to give a shout out to Senator Gabaldon, because it was because of her that the Democrats started to get a table there years ago when we were under the old LT30. When I don't remember if she was on the council or right before she was on the council. She's the one that got us, hooked into that. So have a good time at that event and be grateful.
Representative, it was a team effort. You guided me so much. You were my mentor, and I still continue to value that.